Mike, the first time we talked to you when you were hired, year and a half, 2 years ago, you mentioned that idea of trying to mesh the elite, obviously between what you brought from Cincinnati and what Jim did here. Obviously, it's a process. In your mind, what do you think have been the biggest challenges to get to the level you want to get at, and maybe specifically what you've seen this season that you need to do to elevate?
Yeah, that's a big picture question right there. I think that challenge in coaching on either side of the ball is identifying who your best players are and what everybody's strengths are and playing to those strengths. I think as we evolved here a little bit, we recognized the strength of our current roster and tried to play to those strengths as best we could. And that meant leaning a little bit more on what had been done here in the past because of the roster buildup. You see rolling into this year, we have made some changes in the roster. We've recruited a few different kids, and we're trying to play to their strengths. So as it evolves, I think you're going to be able to see a little bit more what I would call front multiplicity, where you can see some of those different fronts that maybe we ran at Cincinnati or go even years before that. But again, you have to identify who your best players are. You have to identify your roster and try to figure out how to put them in position to play fast and play to their strengths.
Mike, kind of to that point, we've got a very crowded inside linebacker room, and I'm sure it's tough to get the guys as many reps as they want. But specifically with Christian Allegro, he's been really effective in the time he's been in there. How do you keep a guy like that encouraged who, has clearly earned the right to play some and maybe some more down the stretch here?
Yeah, his role will continue to grow as long as he continues to do the things he's doing, and I've been proud of him. I would expect to see more reps from Christian, but I think that's only something that will help Jaheim Thomas as well, right? You don't want to have one guy have 60 snaps a game. Everybody will be playing their best at the end of the fourth quarter or the end of the year, however you look at it, if you can split those reps a little bit more. The same could be said for the Mike backer. Tackett is clearly getting more and more comfortable within this defense, and his leadership role he has to have at Mike, and that'll be the best thing for Jake Cheney as well. And when the guys identify that, recognize that, it'll only make us stronger.
Mike, to follow up, you mentioned you've obviously got a little bit different roster this year, and you're trying to play their strengths, as you said. How close are you to getting to where you want to be to allow them to play to their strengths?
Yeah, I think that a focus this past week, and Coach Fick might have mentioned it, is really allowing guys to turn it loose. No thinking out there on the football field, right? We talk about sometimes changing the math, defeating blocks. Well, those aren't things you can talk about. You have to be completely confident and just want to go tear somebody's head off to do those things. So that's been a focus. We're definitely moving in that direction. There's no doubt about it. But we haven't performed to where our expectations are at all. I mean, I will say we've given up too many explosive plays. Some of the fundamental aspects of defense, like leverage and block defeat, are not up to our standards, and we're going to continue to work at them, and we have. And I think that this past week has been huge for us to sort of refocus. Sometimes you get in the midst of game planning, and you forget what's really important, and I say that as coaches and players, and we're a little bit refocused on what's really important to defensive football, and that's getting population to the football, that's having a chip on your shoulder, those types of things.
Excuse me. Obviously, Alex Grinch has a, tie to USC, and presumably they're gonna, the signs will change and all that, those things. But I guess I'm curious, how do you lean on a guy who, has that kind of experience and has kind of seen, the opponent as well as much as he has? How do you rely on him in a week like this?
Yeah, clearly he has some feel for what the USC offense is. There's no doubt about it. The other side of the coin is when he was going against them, whether it's spring ball or fall camp, there weren't game plans involved. What he was going against was just the true blackboard install. So there's tweaks he hasn't faced. You'd be crazy not to ask him, hey, what do you think here? Hey, what do you think works best here? Hey, what do you think's the best way to defend this player, defend that play? So he's heavily involved in every game plan we have. But anytime you have somebody who has a little bit of extra knowledge, you're going to lean on them.
Mike, you mentioned the block defeat. Is that maybe the thing that's held back the pass rush the most? Is just guys on the edge or even up the middle not getting off their blocks quick enough?
We do not feel like we call it our block defeat. We call it the difference. We call it the difference. We think it's the difference between good and great, winning and losing, and we need to do a better job of using our hands and getting longer. That'll help us in our transitional pass rush. The hardest pass rush is when it's not third and long. You can't just pin your ears back. You're actually thinking defend the run first, and then you have to use your transitional pass rush. And it is absolutely critical to play with length and hands in those situations. And that is definitely one of the areas that we're focusing on, whether it's the block defeat in the run game or that transitional pass rush.
Excuse me. Lincoln Riley, he pretty much always has a great quarterback. I'm curious of what you're seeing out of Miller Moss and how he stands out amongst different quarterbacks that you guys have played.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with him, actually. If you allow him to sit in there and feel comfortable, he can rip it. He can hit spots. You saw 3rd and maybe 16 against Michigan this past week. Michigan dropped off into coverage a little bit more where he had no right finding the touchdown pass. He did, but he sees it. He knows when to get rid of the ball. He certainly has the arm strength. I've been very impressed with him.
Mike, Xavier Lucas appeared to be getting a bigger and bigger role before he got hurt. Do you expect to have him this week? And what stood out about him in those first 2 games?
Yes, I do expect to have him, but steps still have to be made for that to happen. But I do expect to have him. What stood out? The stage clearly wasn't too big at all. He could handle everything that was thrown at him, whether it's the crowd or the Division I talent or whatever it is. And he's shown he can make plays on the football. You can coach your tail off on technique, balance, but sometimes just simply the ability to play the football is it's something you can improve, but either you have it or you don't. He has the ability to play the football. He's a calm kid, and I do not believe any stage this year will be too big for him.
Coach, the run defense, the first 3 games, 120 yards in the first 2, and then Alabama obviously got a good amount in week 3. What do you think maybe needs to be improved there? Are there things that you're seeing that are positive right now that maybe haven't just shown up in the game?
Yeah, I think we're already talking about block defeat. I think one thing that we're talking about, you can't play in today's world fitball, meaning, okay, I just have my gap and I'm going to take care of my gap. It becomes way too passive. So the block destruction's a big one, but the mentality of creating havoc, I think that mentality needs to improve. There's no doubt about that. We need to create a few more negative plays, but where the numbers get ugly is when you give up explosives. So if we can just leverage the ball, do some of those fundamental defensive things, leverage the ball, that'll eliminate the explosives, and you'll see a big jump right then and there. And our guys understand that, so I think they will.
Like, obviously, turnovers, there's an element of luck that they got to put the ball in a position the defense can get it. But, like, how do you evaluate what's happened in the first 3 weeks where you've only got that 1 turnover?
We're talking a lot about getting population to the football. I mean, you need more hats there. Turnovers take place at the end of plays, right? That's by definition the end of play, but they take place at the end of play. So we need to get more hats to the ball. Very seldom is it one dude just makes a play. All right, so if we can get more hats to the ball with a little bit more intensity about us, they then have a tendency to come in bunches because you get a little bit of momentum and you see the success. So they'll come, but let's get hats to the football. That's the first step, and then I have confidence they'll show up.
Mike, with Tackett, and obviously he's facing his former team this week, but for him getting used to this offense, you talked about him getting more of a leadership role within that Mike linebacker position, but just when did you start seeing things click more, especially with him being limited during the spring and maybe having a slower start during preseason camp?
He's a guy, the more reps that he's gotten, the more confidence you could just see grow within him. And the other thing you notice about him is he's very conscientious in terms of, wanting to do right with his assignments and everything, but he does have the ability that once he's on the field to say, I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to play fast. So I think you notice, right, wrong, or indifferent, he's going to play fast. And as he has success, his confidence just grows, but also his teammates' confidence grow in him. Because obviously our guys believe in Jake Cheney. It's hard to not have a guy like that on the football field, but then as Tackett makes plays, the confidence growing him as well, and everybody feels really good about, hey, let's rotate. We're good regardless. This is a good situation. So it's really, as the season progressed and he's got some reps on the field, you could see the confidence skyrocket.
Any further? Yeah, last one, Rohan.
Coach, coming into the season, the secondary was one of the strongest parts of this team. Do you think that maybe you could rely on them a little more, maybe try and throw some different looks with some pressures up front, knowing who you have kind of in the secondary?
Yeah, I mean, I like the group. There's no doubt about it. I don't think that anybody would ever say they have enough depth in the back end, but with some of the young guys coming along as well, it is a good group. Do we need to be multiple? Yes, absolutely we need to be multiple. Hopefully, as the season progresses, you see a little bit more of that evolve. You can't put everything into any single game plan, so when you start putting the building blocks together, when teams have to start scouting 5 games and look at bigger pictures, you see a lot more of that multiplicity. But I do think that there's the ability and intelligence to handle a lot. So hopefully as the year progresses, we can build.